Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the preacher's husband. Today we're going through 2 days worth. We are on day 47 and 48, which is Leviticus chapter 11, 12, and 13 for day 47. And day 48, we are on chapter 14 and 15. So 11 through 15 today. Now, starting out in chapter 11, we learn about clean and unclean land animals, clean and unclean aquatic animals, unclean birds, purification and touching dead animals, and unclean swarming creatures. Now, this chapter includes 2 separate listings of clean and unclean creatures. The identity of many of these, we just don't know what they really were. They could be referring to creatures that were around during the beginning, during creation, or they could be referring to creatures that are around now, some of the ones that are not listed. Some are listed by name, and we still have them today. Some are not. So, most likely, these laws reflected the distinctive kinds at creation. All right, but what this basically was doing, it was developing a pattern of conformity for the people. The food, it wasn't always about health, because even then, it probably wouldn't have killed you to eat some of these things, but it was just a pattern of conforming to God's laws is what this was created for. Now, those food laws that once separated the Israelites and the nations, they're not binding today on modern Christians, and there's reasons for that. A lot of you ask me, well, where in the New Testament does it say this? Well, I'm going to tell you, it is Acts chapter 10, verses 11 through 16. When we get there, Lord's talking to Peter, and Peter's saying, I don't want to defile my body by eating anything unclean. And the Lord's like, I've made it all clean. Don't worry about that. Go eat what you want. I made it all clean. I've changed that. So God himself said that it's okay. So it's okay to eat a shrimp. It's all right. It ain't going to kill you. It's okay to eat a catfish. It ain't going to kill you. All right, eat the pig. Sure, if you want to, go ahead. It's not going to kill you. Well, unless, of course, you're a glutton and you eat too much of it and you get too much fat. But also in Colossians chapter 2, verse 16, you're going to see the same thing. The Lord declaring that it is clean to eat these creatures now. So that's what happens in chapter 11 for the most part. It is God setting standards. He's setting us moral standards for his creatures. Right here in verse 44, chapter 11, for I am the Lord your God, so you must consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am holy. Do not defile yourselves by any of these things that he's talking about here. But he also says again, you must be holy because I am holy. They are supposed to follow God in these ways and not violate it. And he's setting himself up as both the one who is just and also the justifier. God the justifier here. Then we get into chapter 12, purification after childbirth. Now this stirs up a big controversy with people, even today it does, because it looks as if you are looking at gender bias in this, but it's not really. It's more of a safety precaution, I guess you could say, of health concerns and spiritual concerns. And I say that is because this section is referring to purification after childbirth for the woman. It talks about how for 7 days she is unclean, and then for 33 days she must purify after giving birth to a boy. But when you give birth to a girl, it's a little different. So you have 2 weeks or 14 days that she is unclean, and then she must be purified, go through the purification process for her bleeding for 66 days. Now this is not doubling because of gender bias. What it basically is referring to is the circumstances around bearing a female child who is going to be a future mother. And that's what doubled the time frame. It was more of a caution because this is the future of the Israelites here. When a female is born, this is the birthing vessel. This is the woman that gives life, the life giver of the people, Israelite people. That was a very important thing. Yes, at times males were looked at above women, but this was a very special thing for women, not a gender bias thing, just so you know. Chapter 13 talks about skin diseases and all the different things that can come from that, and contamination of fabrics and how they get contaminated. Then we get to the end of chapter 13 here, verses 45 and 46, a person is considered unclean was regulated to life outside of the community until healed. This had to do with quarantining the sick off. Notice they didn't quarantine the healthy people. The healthy people got to stay in society. Only the sick people were quarantined. Food for thought for today. Chapter 14, cleansing of skin diseases and cleansing of the contaminated objects. This is day 48 we're talking about right here. And then we get to bodily discharges. Now this is solidifying the fact that this was the previous chapter about the birth and the time frames they needed to take off to be that they were unclean and the purification. It held true for men as well, because men had bodily discharges as well, especially from the genitalia region. There were diseases, there were infections, there were things that physically would cause diseases amongst the people, and they were considered unclean. Again, 7-day waiting periods and things like. There was a purification process for the men just as much as there was for the women when it came to these scenarios. So the one thing that really stood out to me was how much a preacher or a priest had to be so educated and so knowledgeable about everything that was going on both in their community and with each individual person, and how they had to be multitaskers big time. I can only imagine if you would compare a pastor today to a priest then, how much easier we have it. To all you preachers out there, you're so lucky to be a preacher today, because you don't have to be a butcher and chop up that meat and hold up all them entrails and splatter blood on people and splatter blood on things and all that kind of good stuff. And you don't have to be a chef, and you don't have to burn those offerings, although some of us grill out and we burn some stuff. And you don't have to be a doctor, and you don't have to be able to diagnose all of these diseases, although there have been some mental situations where I'm sure you've faced where you've had to do some thinking and some diagnosing of your own to be able to refer people to where they really need to be at any given time. But I just want you to know that this was a huge job for a priest. They were probably some of the most well-educated people in the entire community, because they had to know so much about everything, both your spiritual health and your physical health and everything in between. So you almost got to admire the priests of this time and think they had a hugely difficult job. They really did. So, that being said, what do you think about all this? What do you think about what it meant to be a priest back then, and what it meant to be a follower of God with all of these different food laws and food rules? You think you could have done it? Would have been tough. I'll tell you, I would have hated to have been that bird, that second bird, when it was talking about the purification in the males, when it came to their discharges and things. I would have hated to have been that second bird, because they would slaughter that first bird, and the blood from that bird, they would dip the second one in, and of course they would splatter that blood all over the man. Anyway, I just couldn't imagine that bird flying off being just tortured that way. It just seems as if that would be a messed up bird after that, seeing his buddy getting all slaughtered and bloodied up, and then he's getting his blood being dipped in the blood of his buddy. I could just imagine the terror in that bird's mind. What do you think about all this? Post down in the comment section something that you think about what just happened in chapters 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 of Leviticus, and let's talk about it. I hope to see you tomorrow for another episode. Tomorrow we're going to talk about chapters 16, 17, and 18 of Leviticus, and I hope to see you then for another episode of the Bible in 1 year with the Preacher's Husband. Click that like button, the subscribe button, and of course click the little jingle bell so you can be notified the next time I upload a video, and I will see you tomorrow.